Is it worth it to lock into a 15-year mortgage vs 30-year and paying additional to principal? Compare against a 30-year mortgage and paying as if you were making 15-year mortgage payments. I understand interest rates would be a little lower for 15-year. But I like the flexibility of being able to run a few $100 less per month, if necessary. Also, hoping to refinance when rates go down anyway. What are your thoughts? Emo not worth it. Get a 30 years and overpay on it whenever you can, but you won't be locked into that payment if you run into any issues. I personally like to go for the longest term possible even if I plan on paying more each month. The reason is due to cash flow. I don't want a big burden if I lose my job. Smaller payment, less worries. I could always pay more anyways. The interest to me is irrelevant for this reason. Someone did the math on this earlier here. Taking a 30-year and paying at the 15-year rate results in a 16-year mortgage. So you tack on an extra year of payments for that flexibility. Really depends on how much the mortgage is breaking your bank. I would personally play it safe and do the 30-year. Gives you the flexibility in case something happens financially or in case you want to finance something else. Your debt to income will be better. Personally, I think you take the 30-year, pay no extra, and add it to a brokerage till it gets to the point you can pay off the whole mortgage. Flexibility is king in all things. Having that money in case some other goal comes along in the meantime is huge. Emo. Once the brokerage value gets to the point you can pay the house off, you do and start banking away the mortgage payment. Most people will say just let it grow on the brokerage. But the peace of mind of being without a mortgage is a huge bonus. Emo. Everyone says take the 30 and overpay, but I like the aggressiveness of taking the 15 and not giving myself the option to pay less. This is assuming you can comfortably afford the 15-year. Pity. Almost got a 15-year in 2020. I got the 30-year instead at 2.25. Now I am getting 4 in my high-yield savings account, so I'm putting the extra money there instead. My experience so far is that I did put large down payment and locked on 15 years. My mortgage is not that high and most of it goes to principal. You'll need to look at the actual numbers for each. If the change in interest is small, the 15-year doesn't make much sense. But if it's a decent chunk, or if you can get a greatly reduced PMI with a 15-year, go for it. If you don't need the financial buffer. With mortgage rates currently quite high, I would prefer the 15-year. That's because at current rates, I would plan to pay it off early anyway. For an investment to be more attractive than paying off the mortgage early, it would require a guaranteed after-tax return of over 7 or whatever your mortgage rate is. Therefore, paying down debt quickly would be a top priority. And if I'm paying it down quickly either way, I might as well take the lower interest rate. You can pay a 30 years mortgage in 15 years, but you can't pay a 15-year mortgage in 30. Google any mortgage calculator. Plug in the rates and loan amount for 30 years paid in 15 and 15 years paid in 15. I personally like the option of 30 years paid in 15. There is a slight difference, but worth the risk reduction in case you can't or don't want to pay as much every month. Just go to regular lower payments till your situation changes. Burn the ships at the shore and commit to 15 years. Future you will thank you. Giving yourself the flexibility can result in impulsive rationalizations. Change your perspective on borrowing, get a 15 and pay it off on 9. Don't bother with the down votes. I'm welded to this. Does your lender offer a 20 years? We didn't want to commit to a 15-year, but rates were comparable on a 20 vs 15. It was kind of the best of both worlds. We are on track to have it paid off in 6 years, so the 15 would have been fine, but I slept easier with the 20. How old are you? I look at it a different way. If I were 50 years old, I would do the shortest term that I can foresee fulfilling in my suitable working years. I wouldn't want to work at all past a certain age, so I'd rather pay more at a lower interest rate to force it. I know that it'd be hard to discipline myself from putting extra cash into principal. I'd rather be forced into it. Or you could do the 30-year and then do the OL pay bi-weekly. That gives you the equivalent of paying 13 months per year and done at about 18.5 months. Do a 30 and pay extra every month. Why lock yourself into a 15-year when you can do a 30 and have the financial flexibility if necessary? You can always make payments to principal to reduce your effective interest cost. Same goes for cars. If you have longer term available at a similar rate, take the longer term. While it depends on the interest rates at hand, many view leverage as a good thing. And when combined with tax benefits, a mortgage is a positive use of your money. Certainly there can be psychological benefits to paying off your mortgage earlier depending on your personality type, but from a pure math perspective, a mortgage is actually a good use of obese money. We refinanced into a 15-year because it was less than an additional $100 a month. Find out what the payment are going to be and find out what your total out of pocket is going to be. Keep the flexibility. Go with the 30. Ideally buy a little better location or invest the difference. We used 15-year loan and regret it. Money in your bank account is runway. And the ability to keep paying your mortgage and not lose your house. Equity doesn't pay the bills. If you're running a tight budget, take the 30. You can always pay more in it if you want. Always worth it if you can swing it. Look at the difference in interest you pay if you can't do the 15, at least try 20-year. Huge difference. I went for the 30-year and took possession in April 2020 right before the COVID lockdown, and I am so thankful I did. My hours got temporarily cut, but I could still comfortably pay the mortgage. When I got back to full-time hours, I have been able to pay extra and cut years off the life of the loan. You never know what could happen. I was paying same amount on my 30 before I refinanced to a 15. $1,500 a month for 15 beats the hell out of $1,500 a month for 30. Take out the 30-year and pay it off early. I took out a 30-year in 2006 and paid it off in 2010. Good luck. This is not a big decision because you will refinance it in few years when Fed inevitably gets back into rate cutting. Go with 30-year one since that gives you little bit of wiggle room. If you have the dollar for a 15Y and it won't make a difference, then do it. If you have the discipline to pay a 30 like a 15, you should be fine. Although most people don't have the discipline for the latter. 30-year. Ouch. Screw that, you'll have more flexibility with a 30-year mortgage. You can invest the extra money into something that will pay you a higher percentage than you're paying in interest and refinance when rates come down. Just my 2 pennies. Take the 15 and pay less interest over the lifetime of the mortgage. You have a rainy day fund if you lose your job or whatever. Should be 6 months of living expenses. 30-year. Take the extra money you would have paid for the 15-year and invest it. I went 30 years and overpaid for about 10 years. When interest rates dropped, about half my principal was gone, so I refied and went with 15. Both were the right decision for me at that time, the 30 because I was young and underpaid. The 15 because I wasn't. That's what I did. 30-year. Paid it off in about 12. I had 2 years that I got much lower bonuses. And eased up on my payments. I think it's worth the peace of mind. Here's the caveat. Make sure you're buying what you can afford on a 15-year payment. The 30-year payment shouldn't factor into that decision.